This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by Audible. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Wednesday, December 21st, 2022. And I'm here with Richard Lai of Engadget, who's all the way in Hong Kong. So for him, it's December 22nd on Thursday. Hi, Richard. How are you?
Hi, Miriam. Thanks again for having me. It's been quite a while.
Indeed. The last time I had you on was, I think, the 200 show. And guess what? This is the 300 show.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. This is massive.
Thank you very much. I think I'm having you on pretty much on every 100 show.
Oh,
It's magical. You were the first guest on episode 1, and then I think you were on 100, 200, and now 300.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's not easy. But
no, but I figured this is a streak. We have to continue with it. I'll have you on again on the 400th.
Oh, yes. Looking forward to that.
It's the holidays as usual. There's not much going on. There's a bunch of news. Strangely enough, I recorded last Wednesday, my time, the last podcast. So I missed by something like 6 hours the Oppo announcements from Oppo Inno Day.
Oppo Inno Day, yeah.
So we'll talk about this a lot. And then there's a bunch of other news and bits and pieces. But overall, it's actually not too busy. And so I want us to go through our 5 favorite phones of 2022. I mean, there's like 2 weeks left. We're not going to get anything else. Right?
Well, I mean, here's the thing with Chinese manufacturers. They don't know what
They
Christmas
don't know
is.
about this new year that we have. I know. But the thing is, I'm thinking like, you're looking at it in Hong Kong, so obviously you could go out right now and buy a Vivo X90 Pro Plus. But yes. I couldn't, you see? So until I get a global model, that's not going to count towards 2022. Plus, I don't think maybe Ben Sin got one, but I don't think anybody's gotten their hands on it yet. So
Ben bought one from our favorite vendor in Hong Kong.
Does he have it already then?
Yeah, he did a test.
Okay.
He actually flew to Tokyo and did a
photo I missed
shoot.
All that. Damn.
Check him out.
Well,
Yeah.
anyway, I'm bringing up Vivo because it's definitely in my top 5. So let's talk about Oppo a bit because they announced 2 phones, the Find N2 and the Find N2 Flip. And I would love to hear your thoughts on these phones. Like I have the N from last year. Somehow they didn't send me an N2 this year. I'm trying to get that right now, but I liked it a lot. I love the form factor. How do you feel about this?
It certainly has its merits, I actually have the N2 here with me, so
look at you! For those on Patreon who are watching the video, you're getting to see the latest and the hottest phone right there.
All right, yep. So this is all about its landscape aspect ratio, if you want to call it that. So compared to the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold series, this is definitely a lot wider. It's shorter but wider. So, in other words, if you have it folded and if you're using the external screen, it's so much easier for typing because you have a wider keyboard. And the apps just look more normal because this is much closer to your regular aspect ratio. Yeah. So
it looks like an iPhone mini, like in terms of like almost like the front of it. Like I remember for my N, I put it side by side with the 13 mini and it was almost the same size.
But I would imagine the iPhone mini is not as wide as this.
It's not quite as wide and it's obviously thinner. But overall, it's a very similar experience. It's very, very one-handed friendly.
Very one-handed. And funny you should mention that because the Oppo Find N2 is literally the lightest large-size foldable phone on the market right now. I think we're talking about 233 grams.
It's quite amazing, actually. I mean, I didn't feel that it was very heavy on last year's model, but I'm sure that once I get them side by side, once I get my review in it, it'll be really obvious.
Well, this is 42 grams lighter than before. And back then, the Find N was actually one of the heaviest foldable phones back then. And somehow they managed to reduce this weight because now they have a carbon fiber underframe for the flexible screen on the inside, and they've swapped out some components with titanium parts. So titanium is lighter,
fancy,
but still as strong or even stronger. So anyway, and of course you've got the proper cameras on here this time. With the Find N, the original model, I was not too pleased with the camera performance.
Yeah, it wasn't the greatest. So is this a Sony IMX766, the 50 megapixel main sensor, do you think?
No, it's the, let me see what else it is. It's the, maybe I didn't mention this. It's something else, I think. Do you know?
Maybe it's the 866, because that's a new sensor that replaces the 766. It's definitely not the 8, it can't be the 989. Like that's...
It's not that, no.
It's too rich for the blood. But I'm excited to see that we now have a 48 megapixel ultra wide. That's a big improvement. The telephoto, I'm a bit bummed that it's only, what is it? Is it 2x or 3x?
Yeah,
2x. And it doesn't have stabilization on the telephoto, does it? Is it using sensor fusion like the Oppo Find X5 Pro? Because it does have Mary Silicon X, right? And so that did fusion for the telephoto. Because I don't know if you've ever used the Find X5 Pro and cover the telephoto lens or the main lens when you try to shoot with the telephoto, and it tells you it can't take the photo because it's fusing. It needs to fuse the two.
Right.
So I'm wondering if they did the same thing here.
I'll need to get back to you on that. But what I can confirm now is going back to the main camera. It's the IMX 890, the 890.
Oh, 890. So that's a successor to the...
Yeah. Interesting, right?
I think that's a similar sensor to what's on the, I want to say on the OnePlus 10 Pro. That's an 898, I think. So anyway, the point is this is definitely an improvement over last year. And I think a lot of it comes down to Mary Silicon X because that blew me away on the Oppo Find X5 Pro.
Yeah. I think Mary Silicon X is more about the ultra 4K ultra HDR video
for sure.
And ultra night mode. That's some super powerful stuff there.
But I think it does bring in some other stuff too. Like I believe that the sensor fusion is one of them.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely right.
So it's going to be a big improvement there. And in terms of display sizes, and it's really the same setup, right? Like we're looking at, is there any slight differences at all?
There are slight differences with the external screen. The external screen is now slightly bigger. The chin is slimmer
bezel
now.
Okay, cool.
Less bezel on the outside, but the form factor wise, it's about the same as before. The internal screen, same size as before, but with a better performance. I think they improved the, what do you call it? Not transparency, but light transmittance.
Oh, cool.
So the black is blacker now, if you know what I mean.
Right.
I think there's like they've managed to reduce one layer of film or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, when I first turned it on, I immediately was blown away because I hate using that word, but I was
very happy it was last year's display, so I'm very excited to see that it's even better because I didn't really need it.
I like yourself. I really liked my Find N last year, and I used it as my main phone for quite some time. So that's why I was able to recognize this difference straight away. And it's basically the Find N, but almost perfected.
And that's a very good thing. Because that form factor, I think, is really great. And I'm really glad they stuck with it because I really loved it. You know, I'm not one of those multitaskers that wants use a fold, the Galaxy Fold because I want to put Windows in the main screen. I kind of just happy just having a slightly bigger version of a normal app, kind of almost. And so I felt very comfortable on the Find N because I didn't have to manage the windows, basically.
But I actually like my Find N because of multitasking.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So you're probably not aware, but there is a gesture for quickly enabling multitasking. Let's say I turn on the App Store here. Now, if I use two fingers to scroll down the seam in the middle, then it automatically asks you to pick another app. So let's say I'll choose Google app. And
that was on the end too, right? I remember using that. I'm just saying that for me, it's like I find that they did a very good job at making it easy, but I just use it as a normal phone, basically.
Oh, sure.
If I want more real estate, I just open it up. That's kind of how I used it. It was, and with the Fold, I feel like I'm wasting the real estate that's available to me. But with this, I didn't feel like I was somehow because it's 7.1 inches. Most of our phones today are 6.7. I mean, it's bigger, but it's not a huge amount bigger, right?
It's all about the aspect ratio, right? Or are you talking about the expanded size?
I'm talking about the open size, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I love what I'm seeing here. I'm very excited also that it has an 8 Plus Gen 1. That's a great chipset. You know, I mean, it's obviously not the newest, but I didn't expect they would. Last year, they didn't ship it with the newest either.
Oh, no, because that took a little longer to develop, you see. And now they have a foundation. Right. They just stick whatever they can into it. It doesn't have to be the absolute latest, to be honest. As long as it's the 8 Plus Gen 1, not the 8 Gen 1, then we're good to go.
Exactly. Absolutely. The better processor for sure.
I do want to mention something because one thing that really impressed me is they added another gesture control.
Okay.
So, you know, normally when you take a screenshot, there are gestures for that. Like, it's different for each manufacturer. In Oppo's case, usually you use like a 3-finger swipe down. And of course, if you're multitasking, then that captures the entire screen. But let's say if you want to capture just one of the two apps, what you can do now is do the same gesture, 3 fingers down on either side, and then boom. It actually captures just that one side. And I thought that's pretty clever. Of course, you can still capture both sides by doing the same gesture down the middle.
Right.
So I thought it's super intuitive. And if you use WeChat, if you're in China, then if you do that 3-finger swipe horizontally to WeChat side from the other app, then you're automatically adding that screenshot as an attachment in your WeChat chat.
Oh, very clever.
It is.
Wow,
cool.
Very cool.
I mean, you know, Oppo's already mentioned that they don't have plans to launch this globally yet. I think it's only because 2 things. One is they've been focusing so hard on optimizing these user experience UX tweaks for the Chinese apps, and secondly, they're still observing my guess is they're still observing the global foldable phone market right now. And of course, you know, Samsung and Google are still clearly working together on optimizing the foldable version of Android. Yeah, I think that Oppo has no rush, technically speaking, because like when I got this phone, it's the China version, and they only have China versions. So,
that's right.
All you have to do is you can just stick the Google Play, the Play Store APK in there, and you're good to go.
Yeah, that's what happened with mine last year as well. And I believe that I talked to the folks at Oppo about getting a review in it, and they said, yeah, it's a China-only market right now. But it doesn't matter to me. I'll just put the Play Store. The only drawback is that you can't. Well, you can replace the messaging app, but it resets back to being the default, being back to the Oppo app. Like, so it's a weird thing. Like, also you can't change the launcher. Not that you really want to, because you want to benefit from all the tricks of the launcher for the dual screen, for the folding features. But the messaging app, I've noticed this on a lot of the Oppo phones that are China only, and BBK Group phones in general that are China only, is that if you install, it lets you install a second messaging app. It lets you select it as the default, but basically the next time you reboot, it's back to defaulting to the original. And then you manually have to make it back into the default. It's really interesting because it's not forbidding you to do it. It's just kind of like steering you back on the right path, as it were, or whatever, right? It's this very, very weird little thing.
The China way. Yeah.
Right. But honestly, other than that, everything else works just like a charm. So I didn't have any issues at all with my end.
I do have to say, the one issue, and it was pretty much the only issue, was I started to have issues with my contacts synchronization.
Oh.
So that started when I was using my Find N last year. I noticed that when I'm using WhatsApp, I started seeing that some of my contact names got converted back to just their phone numbers. Basically, I lost the contact cards in my address book.
Interesting.
And no matter how many times I fill their names back in, they would eventually disappear after a day or two. And I'm still having this issue today on my Xiaomi Mix Fold 2, which we can talk about in a bit. But that's one of those small, well, I wouldn't say small, but one of those issues that you may come across when you're using a China-only Android phone.
Yeah,
sadly.
it can be tricky sometimes, but I mean, overall, it's still perfectly usable. If you're a tech savvy early adopter like us, you'll have no issues.
Right.
You'll find some workarounds. Also, you can Google stuff, and people in the forums sometimes find solution to these issues, so it's not a huge deal. But I'm also excited about this Find N2 Flip. So I presume you got hands-on with that yet? No, not yet. Okay,
not yet. But it's well, first of all, in terms of launch date, the Flip does come slightly later, later this month.
Right, I remember that.
So that could be one of the reasons for why we didn't get it in time. But the good news is the Find N2 Flip will be available globally, first of all.
That's cool.
I want to hear why you're excited about the Flip from Oppo.
I honestly think that right now my favorite form factor for folding phones is basically the Flip form factor. So I'm excited because we need competition against Samsung, who's kind of stealing the show right now in that category. We have great competition to the Fold. Like probably the best in my opinion is Xiaomi, right? The Mi Mix Fold 2. But I feel like, and of course this Oppo Find N2 is also very interesting, the regular model in terms of competing with Samsung. But I think for Flip, we don't have a competitor, right? TCL never launched their thing. There is the Huawei one, of course, the Pocket. But this is, and of course Moto, but the Moto, the Chinese model, or it's now global model of the Razr 2 is pretty chunky, right? I don't know if you watch Mr. Mobile Michael Fisher's review of it. He was pretty critical about it, despite being a huge Moto fan. And then the original, as we know, the original and the 5G version of the original Razr weren't that great compared to what Samsung delivered even on the original Flip, right? And Flip 5G that they did. So I feel like right now with the Flip 4 from Samsung, it is so refined that it's kind of unbelievable to me that other than Huawei, we didn't really have competition that was viable. This seems to be the first serious competitor to the Flip, and that's why I'm excited. I'm also really excited about that cover screen being so big, and I'm actually wondering, it's almost big enough. You are being around long enough to understand this because it's at 3.26 inches. It's the same size as the original Android phones.
Yeah. Wow, how times have changed.
Does it let you use the front screen as a full-on Android experience, or is it kind of more of a customized setup, right? That's what I want to know.
From the demos I saw from the keynote, I think it's strictly for notifications and stuff, previews, and selfies.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think they've if I were Oppo, I wouldn't actually open that up, to be honest, because
it would be ridiculous right now. It would be a bad user experience. But I think it'd be fun, because somebody I'm sure will hack it to do that, because if it would be so good, like 3.2 inches, it's like exactly where we were at back then. So I'm excited about that. I'm also excited about the fact that it's a MediaTek chip. It's a Dimensity 9000 Plus. We don't have that chip on any devices, in the US right now. While this is obviously not coming to the US, it's a global, but there's very few phones with a 9000 Plus. The Asus, was it one of the RG phones, right?
RG Phone 6D series.
Yeah, and then that's it, right? Because there's not that many out there, even with the 9000 Plus.
Right. The others are the Chinese phones anyway.
Correct.
So you wouldn't come across them. But it is worth mentioning that this is the first foldable phone with a MediaTek chip.
That's true too, right?
Ever.
And bigger battery than the Samsung battery, which also has got me excited. Faster charging at 44 watt. By the way, the Find N regular is 67 watt, which I think is better than last year's model, right?
Yeah, last year was only 33.
And there's a pen support now for the bigger one, right? Which did they show you the pen? Did you see it? Do we know anything about it?
Because I had a briefing beforehand.
Okay, good.
They didn't mention this, so this was a surprise.
Whoa, okay, so you didn't even know about it.
I didn't know about it. Yeah.
Do you know what the setup on the cameras is on the Flip? Like it says 50 megapixel, doesn't say OIS on that, which I'm a little disappointed with. But hopefully it has it. Do you know what sensor they're using at all?
I do. I need to. Let me see if I. Because I'm looking at the.
If you get some specs
yeah,
that
I
they
know.
gave you.
Okay, here we go. It's the IMX 709.
709. I don't know that one.
Yeah. Oh no, that's the selfie camera. Sorry.
Okay, that makes more sense.
So it's the IMX 890 again for the main.
Oh,
camera.
so it's the same sensor. Does it say OIS or no OIS at all?
No mention of OIS though.
That probably doesn't have it then. That ultra wide doesn't look too exciting either. 8 megapixels seems a little low. Because the Z Flip this year is still not the greatest camera system, but it's improved significantly over the Z Flip 3. So the Z Flip 4 I think has OIS, and I kind of am a bit annoyed with these flip phones. And also for a long time I was annoyed with the folding phones, the bigger ones, the Fold series competitors, not to really push the envelope for imaging until this year. We finally got some good cameras on the big folding phones, including let's see, Honor and Xiaomi, yeah, and Huawei's already done a pretty good job on the camera front of the folding phones. So but I'm excited. And
Vivo actually,
or Vivo.
Vivo's Fold is they've got.
And then the price on this, of course, now this is Chinese pricing, so add $100 US is what I always say to get kind of roughly a US price. So we're looking at what?
No, that's not how it doesn't work like that. No,
I kind of always think of it that way. Because the prices are much cheaper in China, it seems to me.
Okay, well, it is true that Oppo has been very aggressive with its foldables. Well, the Find N back then. It's about the same price tiers again this year with the Find N2. The basic one, which comes with 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage, is around $1,150 US.
Well, that's pretty good.
And then jumping up to the top model, it's 16 gigs of RAM with double storage, so 512. That's around $1,290. That's very aggressive. Very aggressive.
I know, but I was talking about the Flip. At 860, right? Add another $100 or so roughly for a global model. Like, that's kind of why I think about it.
Oh, that's what you're talking about.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not talking about N versus N2. I'm talking about Chinese pricing versus global pricing. I
thought you meant currency conversion. That's why I was so lost.
I was just saying that if you take the price of a Chinese phone, usually by the time it becomes a global model, and if it's in the upper kind of premium range, like in the $1,000 range, or like above $750 US to start with, usually if you add $100, you get a good idea of what the global price will be. So this looks like we're going to be close to, like, we're going to be below 1,000 on the Flip when it comes out on the base model, with probably like, I figured, so maybe they'll compete with the Samsung price, which is $999 right now.
Although I have been seeing some discounts here in Hong Kong for the Flip, so I've been seeing more of that. But I personally, I'm not so much of a fan of the Flip form factor.
Okay, that's fair.
No, because like I thought the whole point of a Flip was to have the ability to double the screen size rather than getting smaller. But then some of my friends, especially female friends, have reminded me that I don't get it, but like girls sometimes carry these tiny handbags.
Yeah. It's like a makeup compact, but in a phone. Yeah.
Right. It's like it's only big enough for you to put your makeup in there. So the Flip form factor is perfect.
I don't think it's for most. I mean, I'm kind of the exception, but I think that for most of us who are early adopters, tech savvy folk, we prefer the Fold format over the Flip format. But I think in terms of the mainstream customer, the Flip is going to be the seller. 100% every time. I see how popular the Flip is in North America right now.
Oh, cool.
For a fringe product, I still think it's not a mainstream product. You see a lot of it. Like, I see more of that than I see Pixels.
Oh.
So...
yeah, Pixels.
Yeah, but my point is Pixel is in this market very popular, especially here in the Bay Area, right? So the fact that I see in the wild quite a few Flips and no Folds tells me everything you need to know. Theo bought a Z Flip 3 for their second phone for Canada.
Oh, okay.
So, like, this is an iPhone user being so excited about this form factor that they went on to buy one, right? So I think this is something we can't, like, dismiss. I think there's a certain appeal here. And, you know, it's also, as you know, in this market, it's really hard to resist the deals. They paid $180 for it because they traded in 2 phones that I had lying around. And the trade-in deals that Samsung has are insane. Now, this was a year and a half ago, so obviously it's different now. But I looked recently to see, and you can still trade in 2 high-end phones from last year and get almost your Z Flip 3 for free right now. I mean, almost, you know. Samsung's being very aggressive. And it's interesting because everyone has followed suit. Of course, Apple lets you do it, but Google now lets you do it for the Pixels. And OnePlus US even lets you trade in phones to buy the new OnePlus phones. So it's becoming kind of a must-have, which is totally not the case in other markets, you know. So you can't compete. Like, if you're looking at that perspective, it doesn't make sense for anyone here to buy the Fine N2 Flip, even if it becomes a global product. But for those of us who want something different and special, that I think is going to be a fun phone, assuming you don't prefer the folding form factor, like the bigger folding phone. But yeah, I'm just excited that we have some competition. I'm excited that it's a Dimensity 9000 Plus based, bigger battery. I'm hoping the camera system is half decent because that's always seems to be, you know, on the Flip ones, a little bit of a downgrade. But at the same time, I also like the design. I think this big screen in the front, it's very elegant looking, you know?
Yeah. Although, obviously, they took a page out of Samsung's book in terms of color options, like the purple.
Yeah.
Samsung did really well with the purple.
It's true.
Yeah. And you know what? It's worth pointing out that, again, according to Pete Lau, you know, who's also the chief product officer of Oppo now, this Fine N2 Flip is the first flip phone to support dual SIM, dual 5G. Can you confirm that?
I'm willing to believe it because I don't think any of the Samsung phones are dual SIMs, at least the ones we can get. So maybe in Europe they're dual SIM, but then they might not be dual standby. They're probably dual 5G, but they might not be dual standby. I mean, MediaTek has always been the leader at, you know, doing like dual SIM support properly with like dual 5G and then eventually dual standby. So I'm thinking this is more of them leveraging the chipset. It's not that, I mean, and maybe because it's the first MediaTek based flip phone, then it has that feature, right? I don't think it's particularly special.
But I love how Peach was genuinely excited on when he mentioned that on stage. He's such a geek.
He's such a geek. I love it. But I think these 2 phones are great. And I'm excited to see, you know, Oppo come out with them. And I feel that, you know, between this flip phone and, of course, this updated the slightly larger form factor and phones like the Xiaomi, we're finally getting some really interesting, really, you know, defining in terms of improving the technology phones in the folding sphere. And that's making me pretty happy, you know. So I'm pretty excited about this. I want to move on to some of the other announcements at the Oppo Inno Day. And we have a couple of things. Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on the Mary Silicon Y Bluetooth chip and the AirGlass 2, but if you have some thoughts on these, I'd love to hear them. Because it looks to me like in the same way as Apple created their own wireless chip for their earbuds, and we've also seen other companies do that too now. And I can't remember who did that as well. I want to say Huawei.
It's probably Huawei, yeah.
Yeah, that it's exciting to see that Oppo's doing that too, because, you know, this does not change the fact that these accessories from Oppo, these earbuds, are going to be compatible with anything else. But if you pair them with, you know, the right phone, you're going to get a better experience. In this case, they're promising lossless 24/192 audio, which is
24-bit is...
nobody's done that before. I'm almost having a hard time believing that they can pull it off. But then I look at the bit rates that they're talking about, 12 megabits per second over Bluetooth. That's never been done. So at that bit rate, you could do lossless 24/192. So that's exciting. That's important.
Yeah. I mean, you have to remember that Oppo started off doing high-end audio video
equipment
products back then, including Blu-ray players and portable audio devices. Many years ago, they actually released a Pocket DAC, I think.
A DAC, yeah.
Yeah, a DAC, and about the size of a smartphone, even bigger than a regular smartphone. So I'm not surprised at all. In fact, if anything, they need to do this to stand out, because you can't just do an imaging NPU and be done with it. You have to also go back to the audio aspect of things to have an advantage over the competition. And Oppo is known for their AV experience, so good for them. Good for them.
No, I think this is good news. Yeah. And there's been a lot of talk about doing lossless audio at that quality over Bluetooth, but nobody's really quite achieved it yet. Qualcomm claims to have, but I'm not quite sure they're quite there yet. And obviously we haven't seen anything from Apple yet, although they were talking about probably implementing some sort of kind of Wi-Fi connectivity to achieve lossless audio on the future AirPods, but we've never seen it actually happen so far. And power consumption wise, Bluetooth still makes more sense. I'm not sure, but I feel like Oppo might have been the first to crack that nut, which I think is a big deal. But The glasses, I mean, this is an improved version of last year's product, correct?
My understanding is, I was told there's nothing really new about the Air Glass 2, so we don't really have to talk much about this. But
Okay.
You know what? I mean, I'm getting a little tired with these so-called smart glasses. Like, you hear about them, but you can't really buy them. Not even in even in China, they only have like limited quantities. It's like it's just a beta testing, really, open public beta. So,
but they did give it a new name too. So I'm trying to figure out what's different, really.
They're
lighter.
They look more normal for starters.
Okay.
Last year's model was more like almost like a Google Glass, but with the display more integrated. But still, I'm not that impressed with it.
Yeah.
It's only 38 grams though. You've got to give them some credit on that. Only 38 grams for the entire device. But they didn't mention a price, no date. Yeah. It's just a showing off. Showing off. At this stage, it's
but then again, it is Inno Day. Inno Day is all about showing off. And I do feel like it's nice that we're getting real products on Inno Day, like the Find N2 series. But what I'm really excited about is that all glass phone concept thing that they showed.
I actually missed this bit. I somehow missed this bit. I don't know, because I did watch the... Oh, maybe someone was at... this was a display thing. It wasn't part of the keynote.
It could be a separate thing.
Yeah, because I watched the entire thing in Chinese as well. So when you shared the list with me, I was like, I didn't see this.
I mean, it's GIZ China, so I don't know. It's not usually a source that I use as a reliable source, but I feel like it. I've seen it in other places too, so I know it's based on some kind of reality.
Yeah, it is. There's a video. There's like an eyes on video on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but what I will say is this whole all glass phone thing. Vivo did it with the Apex. One of the Apex, the concept phones. Yeah, I dropped. I broke.
You told me about that.
Yeah,
I remember that.
I was later known as the guy who broke the Vivo phones because I was trying to take a photo.
How long ago was that, Richard?
That was just before COVID, so maybe 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. Because they came to Hong Kong, did a whole briefing, and let us touch the prototypes.
Right.
And I was trying to hold 2 devices of different colors at the same time, and I thought being glass, they were slippery. So I was holding 3. I was being greedy, and one slipped off and hit another phone that was lying on the table right below it. So they both cracked. That just says a lot about these whole glass concept phones.
I mean, it's still really interesting. I love the idea that instead of like the sandwich we have today, where like a high-end phone today has some sort of metal frame, usually with the metal exposed on the outside, or anodized, or sometimes even painted, but it's rare. It definitely looks better when it's real metal that you can feel and touch. And then you have the glass in the back, or leather in the back, or whatever, and then you have the glass display part in the front. Right. So the idea here is that instead of the chassis itself being metal, like that mid frame, you're basically carving out a piece of glass or some kind of crazy ceramic material, like think of the Oppo Find X3 Pro and Find X5 Pro back cover, which has this kind of integrated camera bump. But then imagine the edge of the back actually being the edge of the phone and incorporating the structural chassis, the structural metal frame. But basically, I'm pretty sure under there's still a metal frame. But from the outside, when you touch the product, you basically are touching glass, because the back goes into the sides and then the front is another piece of glass, right?
Yeah.
So I think, this looks cool. I kind of forgotten about the Vivo. Wow. But Vivo and Oppo, right? BBK Group. I feel like, they are recycling a lot of the same kind of concepts, right? Over the years. First in-display fingerprint sensor, remember that? They were fighting about that.
They all share the same supply chain at some point. So when it comes to those features, then not just the BBK Group. It's just got to be the entire Chinese mobile industry that gets to share that kind of love.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But they're still a bit siloed, right? Like Xiaomi's still doing a little bit of something different usually than the other guys, right? And BBK Group seems to be doing something a little different too. Like, I feel like there's some commonalities, but there's definitely more commonalities between like Realme, OnePlus, and Oppo, and there's Vivo is a little bit on its own, kind of in its own planet with iQOO or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then we don't hear about CC anymore. I think that still exists. Does it still exist? Xiaomi's brand CC, which is was a China only sub brand for Xiaomi.
CC.
Yeah.
Civi.
I don't know what it's called. It's the letter C and the letter C.
Oh. That was more of a sub-series of a phone.
It was another brand that Xiaomi had for a while. Now, of course, it's just Xiaomi, Redmi, and Poco, right? That's it now.
Yeah. Well, they have the Civi series, which is a China thing targeting the female market for some reason.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's more like they want to do their version of Meitu. Remember Meitu?
Oh my God, Meitu.
Yeah.
Yes. There's some manufacturers we just don't hear from anymore, and I'm kind of curious, since you're in Hong Kong, like, do you still see phones made by Meizu? Is Meizu still around?
Meizu has gone really quiet these days. If they're still around, the last phone they released was not that exciting at all.
Okay.
Like, it's clear that they bought this design from one of the ODMs. Having said that, they got investment from the Chinese car manufacturer Geely.
I saw that, yes.
Back in June this year.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But we haven't heard from Meizu since then. No new product announcement yet.
What about Smartisan?
Smartisan's dead. Like,
they're gone?
ByteDance bought their assets.
Oh, that's right. And they made a phone. I kind of wanted that phone when it came out.
They did?
Yeah, didn't they make a TikTok phone?
I don't think so.
Yeah, there was a TikTok phone.
I need to get back to you on that. Because after they bought it, there was one more Smartisan phone, but it didn't excite me at all.
No, I'm not sure it was Smartisan related in any way. I just know that ByteDance released a TikTok phone. I don't know if Smartisan was involved, but it did.
I need to get back to you on that. I don't think that happened. Maybe that was a rumor. You sure? Right.
Well, let's see. TikTok phone. Because now we need to get to the bottom of this.
Or maybe it's a Douyin phone but because Douyin
TikTok phone is a solid budget handset with flagship Smartisan Nut Pro 3.
See, that's a Smartisan.
But that's what, I remember this coming out and thinking to myself, I want to get my hands on the TikTok phone. That sounds cool.
But it's not the TikTok phone. It's not. Okay. It's basically the last phone to release shortly after the acquisition.
Okay, got it.
It was like something they had to finish off.
All right.
Yeah, it's not like
it's not the real deal, right?
No.
Okay, well, that's unfortunate.
Basically, and the hardware team got dissolved.
Right.
Shortly afterwards. They only bought the assets for some UI, UX people. That's all.
But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think other brands that I haven't heard in a while. Chinese brands. Are there any? Can you think of any?
Yeah. Well, Lenovo had a brand called ZUK, ZUK.
Oh yeah.
But that's gone as well.
Interesting.
And then for a while, the guy who was leading ZUK actually joined Xiaomi. But he only stayed for a year and then left.
Interesting.
So, yeah. No, I can't think of any other ones.
Well, there you go. So
ZTE
and Nubia, yeah, they're still around.
They're still around.
Red Magic mostly, really, seems to be their big bread and butter right now.
Yeah, well, Nubia managed to release. Oh, yeah, they literally 3 days ago they released their new phone with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2.
Oh, I didn't even hear about that. Wow, what's it called?
It's called the Z50 on your side, yeah.
Nubia Z50. Okay, that makes sense because they had a bunch of Z phones before.
Yeah, but check this out though. This is the cheapest Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 phone you can get. It only cost $430.
Wow. Well, okay, so here's the thing, right? The Red Magic phones are sold officially in the US and support US 5G, and they're always the cheapest. They're gaming phones, but there's always the cheapest phones with the latest Qualcomm chip, flagship chip that we can buy here as well. To give you an idea, they are like 600-ish US dollars, like 700 at most. It's definitely cheaper than, and they come out pretty quickly after the announcement of the chip too. Yeah. So it's interesting because they're able to obviously bring some savings to even the US market on these phones. So I don't know how they do it.
Well, it's cheaper for them to, I don't know.
Cool.
They can do the scale. When you do scale, then the BOM is lower.
Oh, that's interesting. Of course I didn't see it because it's Engadget Chinese. I don't know how to read Chinese, so I'll have to translate it.
Yeah.
Let's move on to OnePlus that announced that there's going to be an event on the 7th of February where they're going to launch the OnePlus 11 and the OnePlus Buds Pro 2. And then there's a little teaser video, and it's going to basically be called, they actually had a name for that event.
Cloud 11.
That's it. So it's in New Delhi in India. So
you should go.
Maybe they'll fly us out. Who knows? But here's the thing, right, Richard? This is actually, I think, a good thing because it was such a disaster, the launch for us in North America last year of the 10 Pro, because we saw it come out in China, right? And then people imported it, or people like Ben got their hands on it, and we got reviews of the Chinese model. And by the time, literally 3 months later, or whatever it was, several weeks later, at least 2 months later, that it finally became official in this market, it was, we knew everything about it. There's no point in reviewing it. So the interest was very low, right? The enthusiasm was almost completely wiped out. Marketing wise, they completely lost the plot last year.
Some Chinese brands still do that. Like the global launch has to take place some time after the China launch.
And that's fair. But I feel like OnePlus being kind of number 3 in North America right now, really, if you maybe battling it out with Google as number 3, that's like a big faux pas. Like you're sabotaging one of your key markets by making a phone that has no more surprises, like it's very strange. I know that's very common for BBK Group to do with Oppo phones and whatever, but we weren't surprised in the sense that we've seen this done before by Chinese makers, launch in China, then launched globally. But there was such a delay between the two. And then on top of that, the complete loss of interest, right? It's like, when Sony launches a phone and it doesn't ship in the US for another 9 months,
Yeah.
Like we don't care at that point, the specs are pretty much obsolete, right? So that was a big bummer.
In their defense, I'm sure you're aware, the OnePlus was going through a phase over the last 2 years because of the integration back into Oppo. I mean, I think that would explain the lack of the lowered priority, if you want to put it that way.
I honestly, I'll be honest with you, I would love to have a chat with Pete Lau because I think he screwed up. I think he's actually still screwing up the way he's marketing the OnePlus brand. And I've talked to people at OnePlus in North America, including the CEO here, and they're kind of freaked out. They're worried about losing relevance because they're getting their lunch eaten by Google, and they were in such a good position and they lost all that momentum because of this reorg and because they weren't able to market their products properly. The only place where they're still doing great in North America is in the budget to mid-range, or not even mid-range, but the $200, $300 phones that are sold through T-Mobile, the N series, the Nord N, which is an N for North America. These phones are extremely competitive only because the only competition they have is not LG, because they're all gone. Moto is the only competition with the Moto G series. So I feel like all the momentum they had as a premium kind of flagship brand, they lost.
Don't you have the Samsung A series as well?
We do have the A series, but they're not very popular. As you know, this is a flagship market. You have two tiers in North America. You have the person walking into the Verizon store and buying the top of the line flagship from whatever brand, and they get a subsidy and they don't even care how much it costs because it adds whatever it is to their plan every month. And then you have the other people who are price conscious and walk into another kind of
Walmart
carrier store, which is like the prepaid store, like the Metro by T-Mobile or Cricket, and they are going to buy a Moto G or one of those OnePlus Nord N series because that's the most affordable, cool, well-spec'd phone that they can get. And they have to pay full price for it because it's prepaid. And that's it. We have nothing in that $500 range because of that. So the regular Nord or phones like the Nothing Phone 1 would have a really hard time flying here, even though I personally believe they're fantastic phones. Right. And so it's very difficult. And it looked for a while there after the 7 Pro, the OnePlus 7 Pro, and the even the 8 Pro, that they had kind of reached number 3 parity in the market here. And then they lost all that momentum with this Oppo integration because I feel like Pete didn't really understand how it works here.
So now that you've mentioned the importance of the carrier partnership, I think that's where they screwed up then.
Yeah, I mean, they've had T-Mobile as a partner for a while, but did you know that until the OnePlus 10T recently, you could not get 5G on AT&T on any OnePlus phone?
Oh.
It wasn't certified for it.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And people were really angry about it. Verizon was certified, but it didn't support their millimeter wave because all the newer phones don't have it. Until the OnePlus 9 Pro, they had a millimeter wave version, and then they stopped doing that for some reason. But if you look at the competition, Apple, Samsung, even Google, they have millimeter wave on all their phones. So it's not necessary. Trust me, you can be perfectly happy without it in this market because Verizon's the only one, and it's in such few places that it doesn't really matter. But at the same time, it's for a carrier to be happy, it's a critical feature to have. And yet they removed it from the 10 Pro. And the 9 Pro is the last OnePlus in the US that has millimeter wave support. And it's really hard for me because I understand, you know that I understand the rest of the world market, and I keep track of what's happening in China and India and Europe. And I'm taking a very US-centric perspective here simply because I feel like Pete and his team kind of lost an opportunity and lost the kind of position they had in the market here. Now, maybe it doesn't matter to them because there's not enough phone sales, but now they have to regain that trust and that mind share, especially amongst the media and the early adopters who have always been the ones kind of driving OnePlus, right? Like we've been the ones who finally put OnePlus where they were, and it wasn't until T-Mobile did the OnePlus 6T that finally they had a carrier partner that, and since then, T-Mobile is the carrier partner. Verizon is kind of there. But you look at a Pixie, even Google has managed to get complete carrier parity where you can walk into any carrier store and get a Google phone.
But I would imagine this seems like more of a problem with the OnePlus's CEO of the US rather than Pete. I think Pete still cares a lot about the US market. He knows.
I don't know, because there's not enough differentiation between OnePlus products and Oppo products anymore. Like they look very similar to one another.
Yeah,
and that
I'm talking about securing the carrier partnership.
No, for sure, absolutely. But I feel like you also need to differentiate. Like, I'll give you an example. A phone in North America should not have 4 cameras in the back. It should have 2 or 3. The 2 should really be meaningful cameras, an ultra wide and a main. We don't care about macro or depth or whatever, because it's not like India where camera count counts.
But you need zoom.
A good phone
portrait.
has 3 cameras if it has a telephoto, and that's it. And the fact that we were basically getting rebranded Oppo phones almost was kind of like, you're not understanding the market. And you were for a while understanding the market. And I feel that that's because these are people making the product in China are not understanding what the market wants. Or are saying we need to get those 2 brands closer together because they're assimilating into each other, and we need our supply chains to be optimized and our manufacturing to be optimized. But they're losing track of the fact that in doing that, they're completely alienating markets like Europe and the US. And I think Europe too, because in Europe, people would, I'm sure, prefer just having 2 useful cameras rather than 4, like that's...
So, okay. Funny you should mention that, because literally around earlier this week, Oppo, if this is a OnePlus event, OnePlus also had an event in China shortly after Oppo Inno Day that was hosted by Pete Lau as well. And he was there. It was specifically to explain the positioning of OnePlus. It's got a realignment. So Pete announced that from moving forward, OnePlus will be more of an online brand. So I think he's talking more specifically about China. So there will no longer be OnePlus shops, physical shops. They used to have those, but they will be available in the Oppo shops, first of all. And secondly, OnePlus will be more of first of all, OnePlus will be receiving a ton of money, a ton of investment from Oppo side. Using Oppo's the chipsets, all those chips were mentioned earlier, the camera tech, and then they said OnePlus will be more of the beyond flagship experience, the geeky experience kind of branding. I mean, it sounds nothing new here, but somehow he was reiterating that, and he said something interesting. He said even if they make 0 profit, it's fine. OnePlus can have 0 profit after all the BOM costs and all that. I don't know why he mentioned that. It seems
interesting.
Like in China, maybe they're trying to make money from the software side. Or
I honestly feel that they're feeling the pain. I think Realme is the new OnePlus. I think OnePlus has lost its luster worldwide. I can't speak for India and China, but I can certainly speak for my friends in Europe and my friends in North America. And I think that's because of the integration, and because the integration was done in a very Chinese mindset, and not we are in different markets carrying a different people mindset, which I think somehow Samsung's really good at. Even though they make a single product, it seems to be well optimized for all their markets. I don't know how they do that, but if they can do that, there's no reason Oppo, with all of its brands, because I kind of count Realme as part of that because they're pretty close, right? Even OS-wise. I don't understand why these 3 brands. Vivo is in its own little sphere and they're doing great. But I feel like the BBK Group brands that are Oppo, OnePlus, and Realme could be doing so much better. Realme's doing okay, but they're kind of an unknown here and they don't have any brand equity. So what I'm thinking is OnePlus could be the opportunity for the Oppo Group, or I'm being specific of Oppo OnePlus, the Oppo Group, to make phones that are optimized for the West. And they're not doing that. And I don't understand why. This is a lost opportunity. Use Oppo for the rest of the world. Realme for the most affordable value products, even if it's a flagship value product, because they make great flagships too. And then create a masterpiece of a OnePlus phone for the West that really competes head to head with the three that are really right now killing it in these markets, which is Apple, Google, and Samsung.
Isn't it true? Yeah. So here's the thing. Isn't it true that OnePlus kind of burned the bridges with pretty much all but two or maybe all three major carriers in the US?
They did, and they burned the bridges with their audience, their early adopter, their tech savvy audience who was. Word of mouth was huge. People would sometimes buy a OnePlus phone because, they weren't tech savvy, but they were available in the carrier store. They were kind of the number 3 option because they always had a display. And your friend told you about it, or your brother or whatever told you about it. And you were satisfied because the phone was a good phone. And now there's no longer that. And on top of that, the journalists decide, screw this. You're not doing a good job.
Yeah, so they burned the bridges with the media, but from what I heard from the actual proper industry folks, they said the US carriers were not happy with their partnership with OnePlus. So I forgot the main reasons for those, but OnePlus has to fix this. As you mentioned, the premium market is very much to do with the carriers. So if you can't work it out with the carriers, or if you can't fix whatever shit you did with the carriers beforehand, then that would explain why OnePlus hasn't been that active or hasn't been as timely with the US market.
I mean, it's been a hard sell for us to recommend a OnePlus phone for the last year and a half.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, the integration was not ideal. And in fact, they tried to get rid of Oxygen OS in the first place, right? And then they realized, oh no, we can't do that. Oh, man.
And then the other things you have to understand is that Google today is not the Google it was 2 years ago. The Google of the Pixel 5 days is a completely different Google than the Google of the Pixel 7 days. These phones are killing it here. They are absolute masterpieces in the mind of the people who are normally OnePlus customers and the media. And they're clearly the number 3 now in this market in US because of that. It's an incredible turnaround. Are they still selling a lot? I don't think so. But Google doesn't matter. Google has all the runway in the world. But they're finally making phones, Richard, that are hitting all the boxes, that are featuring everything you want. And they're adding their incredible ecosystem and software tweak on top of that makes it irresistible for many of us who are so deep in the ecosystem, right? So
well, I wouldn't know because I never got to.
You don't have
try.
one. Yeah, I know.
I don't.
No, seriously, the 6 series last year, not the 6A, although the 6A was pretty good, but it came out, in the summer. It's essentially last year's stuff. But the 6 and 6 Pro were a turnaround for Google, and the 7 and 7 Pro are just reinforcing that in a major way. I'm still not a big fan of Tensor. I still don't want that. I want a Snapdragon or Dimensity chip in there, given the choice, with maybe a custom NPU to do all the cool imaging stuff that Google does. I think that'd be much better than this Exynos derived Tensor crap that they're dealing with, because it's not that good. The radios are not that good. The battery life could be better. But considering what they have to play with, considering who they decide to go to bed with, the Samsung stuff, I think they're making better phones than the Samsung phones.
Interesting.
Because of the software, because of the camera, because of the ecosystem, it's important. But before we talk about the 5 phones we really want to pick as our best for the year, I want to ask you quickly what your thought is on this news about Nothing has released basically Android 13 for the Nothing Phone 1, and you're going to have a limited opportunity to test it here in the US. Some people are going to have a chance to basically try a Nothing Phone 1 in the US with Android 13. And it tells me that they're coming out with a US phone and maybe a carrier partnership next.
Well, Carl did say they're preparing for a US launch, yeah.
I think that this is, clearly them testing that out, right? Which I think is exciting. I love that phone so much. I don't love the glyphs and stuff and the gimmicks, but the fact that the phone is really affordable and so well balanced, right? Everything about it is nice and good. Not the best, but nice and good. It's great.
Yeah, for the price, you can't really complain much.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a word of mouth thing, and he's been very good at getting celebrity endorsements, especially people in the fashion industry as well.
Yeah.
He's managed to create this fashion brand kind of vibe.
Yeah, and I think that's
brand.
another thing that, it's kind of icing on the cake. Like, to me, the glyph stuff is cool and I like it. Do I need it? No, but I appreciate it and I think it's icing on the cake. You have a really solid cake, and then on top of that, you got this tasty, delicious icing on it.
The cherry on top.
Yeah. And I mean, kudos. And you know what I'm seeing here, honestly, Richard, is I'm seeing Kyle getting frustrated with what was going on at Oppo OnePlus with the direction Pete was taking things and going, he did the Nord, and the Nord is like the proto Phone 1. Like, it is really the kind of direction that the Phone 1 eventually became. The Nord was a really well-balanced mid-ranger, and then the Nord 2 as well. And then he left. Well, he left before the Nord 2, I guess. And then we got the Phone 1. And the Phone 1 is essentially, in my mind, kind of like a Nord 3, really, but with new design language and new, but it's good. It's a good thing. This is not I'm not trying to be like negative here in saying that. I feel like he's been able to.
Yeah, Nord 3 is so boring compared to the Phone 1.
No, but I'm saying, okay, maybe Nord 3, maybe a Nord 4. Like, it's basically like an evolution of what he had started there, right?
I guess you can say that, using Nord as
the marketing
reference platform for his
kind of,
next
and
venture,
kind of like that really nice, really good, not the best, but really nice, really good, solid and affordable value. Like, I was perfectly happy with the Nord as my main phone, and I was perfectly happy with the Nothing Phone 1 as my main phone for a while. So, especially because it has wireless charging, which is one of my requirements. I know. All right, top 5 phones for Richard Lai from 5 to 1.
Wow, 5. I was gonna go like from 1 to 5.
Now, if you want to do 1 to 5, let's do 1 to 5.
Let me think. I'll start with 1. My top favorite of this year, it's the Xiaomi Mix Fold 2. I've been using it as my main phone since day 0, really, before it launched, and I'm still very happy with it. It's still the slimmest foldable phone.
It is
big foldable phone,
unbelievable, guys. If you ever see this phone in person, it feels like a Star Trek prop. Like, it doesn't feel real to me, yet it is real.
It is so slim, 5.7 millimeters, like just slightly thicker than the USB-C port. And for its size, it's I would say it's still surprisingly. I mean, of course, overall the weight is still like 2 grams. It's heavier than the normal phone, but it is a foldable phone, and for its thickness, it's amazing. And camera-wise, it's not bad. You know, they've got the Leica branding.
It's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the only complaint I would say is this distortion, because I think it's because they have to achieve such a slim
the Z depth.
They have to make some sacrifices in terms of optics. But other than that, I've been very happy with it. And It comes with a back cover with a kickstand on it. So, I sit down, get my noodles, and I'll be watching Netflix on my big screen.
Fantastic.
It's fantastic. It's my childhood dream come true.
Fantastic.
Number 2. Oppo Find N2. They arrived just in time.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So that squeezed through right at the end of the year. Nice.
Yeah. And both you and I were big fans of the Find N, and now we have a perfected Find N, which is the Find N2. It's lighter, great cameras finally, and much faster charging time as well. And great screen, improved screen, especially on the inside. So, yeah, love it.
Okay.
I mean, I still want the bigger screen, which is why I
and you have choices. Exactly.
Yeah, I have choices here. Number 3. Number 3 is probably the ROG Phone 6 Ultimate.
It's a nice phone with the OLED on the back. Yeah.
OLED on the back. Fantastic cooling. Massive battery, 6,000 milliamp hour battery life.
Yeah.
And, I'm not that much of a gamer, but when I do, especially like PUBG and whatever, I can't do it without those air triggers.
Right, for sure. And even if you're not playing games, this has everything. This phone is
the
packed to the
speakers.
gills.
Oh, the front-facing speakers,
Incredible.
fantastic. Still the
Mhm.
best. Still the best for watching videos on a phone. Yeah, so definitely ROG Phone 6 series, the entire series anyway. Yeah, including
right.
6D. Yep.
What's your
And
number 4?
Number 4 is probably this is where I'm struggling. The Nothing Phone 1 is definitely one of the two. Number 4, number 5.
Okay.
It's very unique, great price performance, and it's something that when people look at it, they know what it is right away. The word of mouth is super strong here. The marketing
Okay.
game, the branding, fantastic. Last but not least, Vivo X90 series.
Yes. Well, they're not technically. Are they out really?
Well,
Can we buy them?
Yeah.
Let's. Do you want to
Even
pick?
in Hong Kong, it's not officially available yet, but they did say they're launching
Do you
it
want
in
to
early
pick the
January.
X80 Pro instead?
No, but it exists in Hong Kong anyway. I got to talk about what I can get here. Right?
Right.
So for me, it's the X90 series.
X90. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Actually, no. You know what? Oh, I don't know. Yeah, let's stick to Vivo. But I've got a lot of things to complain about Vivo these days. But we'll save that for another time. We'll see how things go at the 400th episode.
Right on.
Yeah, I hate the freaking. Sorry, man, I'm so angry with Vivo. That stupid text on the back.
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
What the hell are they thinking? But anyway.
No, I can understand that. Okay, my number 1, Pixel 7 Pro.
Nice.
It's market dependent, I know, but I am still not sold on folding phones. I like them, but I don't really feel that they make my life better because I'm not a window multitasker. I am a swipe between apps multitasker. And so as such, I feel like I've got a better experience on a large screen brick phone, right? So, and then, they've refined it so much. The only thing I can think of that makes me kind of question my choice is the Tensor chip, but it's much better this year. And so overall, that's my number 1 pick. My number 2, man, that's a tough one. I feel like Samsung is in number 2 somehow. I have a kind of a toss here between, of course, the S22 Ultra, which is like the new Note and has one of the best camera systems on the market and can be bought anywhere in any market in the world. And then, of course, the Z Flip 4, because again, I see a lot of traction with this. I find it pretty interesting. Every time I use a flip phone, I really like it. So one of those two. Number 3, probably would pick Xiaomi 12S Ultra for the camera system. Because look, next year we're going to be able to buy the Xiaomi 13 with the same sensor, but right now we can't. And I would like to, as a runner-up to that, the Xiaomi Mix Fold 2. Simply because it is a remarkable piece of engineering and I have to have at least a non-flip folding phone in there. So one of those two, because I think Xiaomi's done some really good stuff with their Leica partnership as well. The photos I've taken with Juan Carlos Bagnell's imported 12S Ultra have blown my mind. Like that main sensor, it's DSLR grade stuff. It's insane. Number 4, I want to pick the Vivo X90 or X80, depending on what's available for you. Of course, the X90 with the new sensor is going to be probably a better choice. But I think even the X80 Pro 3 months ago was an incredible package in terms of imaging. And that's still my focus. I still feel like I'm kind of gravitating towards phones that have really good cameras.
You still can't technically buy the X80 anyway on your side, so I don't see why you have to.
No, but I have a review unit, so
to touch.
I remember our audience here is all over the world, so I'm kind of trying to be as broad as I can. But the X80 or X90, honestly, I want the X90 Pro Plus really badly right now, so I'm hoping to get my hands on that.
Right.
And then my number 5 is. It's tough because, look, I want to say Nothing Phone 1, yes. But I have to say that if I look at the world market right now and what, my friends and family are using, I have to have an iPhone in there somehow. So it's a toss between that and the iPhone. And the iPhone, of course, it'd be a Pro Max. And I think that for that, 14 Pro or 14 Pro Max, I think I'm impressed with the fact that it's taken this long for Apple to bring us a large sensor, but they did it well. And more importantly, I still think Pro RAW is something that doesn't get enough attention. Pro RAW is, there's an equivalent on Samsung, and I believe Vivo has something similar now too. But I feel like theirs is so easy to work with in post, that it's a really exciting feature to have. And for recording video, short of using a American X based phone that does incredible low light video, I feel like video recording on the iPhone is still hard to beat.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. That's my top 5.
Nice.
Well, listen, let's wrap up. I would love you to tell the audience where they can find you on the internet, Richard, and all the handles and all the stuff you do.
Okay, so I'm still on Twitter. So funny enough, I'm Richard Lai, Lai, and I'm also on Instagram. I think I'm more active on Instagram these days. So,
cool.
I'm Richard Lai HK, so slightly different there on Instagram, and Facebook as well. If you want to find me, it's same handle as my Twitter on
awesome.
Facebook. I think, yeah.
And you write for Engadget China and Engadget US as well, or
yeah.
Chinese and English.
Chinese and English. So I on the Chinese side is more admin stuff. Yeah, but speaking of which, I'll be covering CES for Engadget Chinese. Will you be going
in
to CES?
person? I'll be there. Yeah. Absolutely, I'll be there.
See you
Indeed. Well, I hope we get a chance to hang out a bit.
For sure.
Yeah, so folks, follow Richard on the internet and read his cool stuff. And you know where to find me. I'm at Tankgirl, that's TNKGRL. Like the comic book character, drop all the vowels. And you got my handle on Twitter and Instagram. And yes, I'm still on Twitter for the time being. But also, I'm not super active, but I tend to post a lot of photos still on Instagram, even though Reels are where it's at. I don't know. I'm kind of old school. It's just about photos for me. So if you want to see pretty photos of phones, of cars, of food, of travel, all taken with phones, check out my Instagram. If you want to chat with me and Richard about this episode, Twitter's probably the safe place to be. Safe is probably not the right word, but it's a place where you can interact with us, let's say, if you feel up for it. And then, of course, the podcast is at mobiletechpodcast.com. We're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Spotify, everywhere good podcasts can be found. And please subscribe and tell your friends. And if your app lets you rate or review the show, go ahead and do that. That would really help. There's a couple of YouTube channels right now. They're a little bit on hiatus. I haven't really posted much on them, but youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. youtube.com/mobiletechmore. One of them is the phones and the wearables and the audio stuff like headphones and earbuds. And then the other one is all the other stuff, car tech, travel tech, home automation. And typically it's unboxings and some reviews. But as I said, I need to kind of get a little more serious with them. It's been a bit dull there lately. So stay tuned because I will hopefully crank things up a notch in 2023, starting with CS. So you know how to use YouTube. So like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the little bell, comment, all that good stuff. I'd appreciate it. And of course, if you want to help me out with this, to make this podcast happen and financially help out, Patreon is where it's at. Patreon.com/Tankgirl. That's Patreon.com/TNKGRL. You can get a video version of this podcast and you get it ahead of everyone else. You get it 2 or 3 days before, typically, and you can see the awesome Oppo Find N2 that Richard brandished earlier there if you subscribe. So please check out the Patreon. There's some tiers there. There's the video version. It's a little less edited. Sometimes I leave additional content in there. There is, of course, a Discord server you can join to chat. There is a bunch of other perks, so check it out. Patreon.com/TNKGRL. And if you want to donate and participate and help in another way, there is a PayPal link in the show notes. You can click through and make a little donation, maybe buy me a coffee or something. That would be great. And then I want to finally thank our sponsor, Audible. Audible's been with the show since the very early days, and they've been pretty awesome sponsor to have around. So I want to thank them again. And we have a special deal for you. audibletrial.com/mobiletech is the URL, and it gives you a 30-day free trial, and you get to keep a book whether you stay or not. But I think you'll stay, and I think the reason for that is because if you're like me and you love books, but maybe your eyes are tired at the end of the day, you don't want to look at another screen, you want to listen to a book being read to you or something like that. Well, Audible is your choice. Audible is the platform for that. They are the best audiobook platforms in the world. They have a ton of books to choose from. Some of them are read by the authors. You have an incredible selection. And more importantly, you have some short content too. You're not just the big, long books. If you want something to just snack on for a bit, or you can get podcasts that are unique to Audible. So it's not just books, and it's anything and everything that's read to you. So check it out, audibletrial.com/mobiletech. And I really love it. I really appreciate it because, again, my eyes are just not getting younger. So check out Audible and help if you can. And I want to thank Audible again for being our sponsor. And Richard, I want to thank you for being my guest on the show on the 300th episode. I appreciate it. I know, it's crazy, right?
So awesome. Congratulations again. What a milestone.
Well, thank you so much. And I will definitely have you on the show, hopefully for the 400th, but even maybe before that. You never know.
Let's do it before.
Let's do it before, because now I want to really hear that Vivo rant. So, all right. Stay tuned, folks. We'll have another throw next week. And until then, cheers, everybody, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Bye.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.